I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. This is Democracy Now!
Comedian Bill Cosby is behind bars after a Pennsylvania judge sentenced him Tuesday to 3 to 10 years in prison. In April, the jury found Cosby guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constant, former director of operations for the women's basketball team at Temple University, at Cosby's home in 2004. Constant is one of some 60 women who have accused Cosby of sexual assaults dating back decades. Cosby had been out on bail since his conviction, and on Tuesday, Montgomery County Judge Stephen O'Neill ordered him to be jailed immediately. The judge also upheld a state board's finding that Cosby is a sexually violent predator, meaning Cosby will have to undergo monthly counseling and register as a sex offender with police for the rest of his life, and neighbors and schools will be notified of his address and crimes. Cosby was first arrested in December 2015 for assaulting Constant. The first trial in 2017 ended with a hung jury. During this trial, the judge allowed 5 additional Cosby accusers to give statements. This is Shalon Lasha, who testified that Cosby sexually assaulted her in 1986.
He ruined my life at 17 years old and took away my future, my financial, everything about me, and lived his life on over and over and over again with no regards. And I think he needs to pay for what he's done to everyone. I have nightmares about it this very day. And I want them to go away, just like him.
Cosby's lawyers plan to appeal his conviction, and he's denied any wrongdoing. This is Bill Cosby's spokesperson, Andrew Wyatt, speaking Tuesday after the sentencing in the pouring rain.
Mr. Cosby's doing great. And Mr. Cosby knows that God is watching over him. He knows that these are lies. They persecuted Jesus, and look what happened. Not saying Mr. Cosby is Jesus, but we know what this country has done to black men for centuries. So Mr. Cosby's doing fine. He's holding up well. And everybody who wants to say anything negative, you're a joke as well. Thank you.
Bill Cosby is the first celebrity to be convicted of sexual abuse since the start of the Me Too movement. For more, we're joined by visual artist, actor Lily Bernard. She's accused Bill Cosby of drugging and raping her in the early 90s when he mentored her in preparation for her guest starring role on The Cosby Show. Welcome back to Democracy Now! As I watched TV yesterday, I saw you coming out of the courtroom. The significance of Bill Cosby being sentenced to 3 to 10 years and being imprisoned right away.
That torrential rain that was pouring down as we were emerging from the courthouse was so serendipitous because Judge Stephen O'Neill, he delivered a tsunami of a sentence. And I view it not only as something that signaled a shift in rape culture away from misogyny and towards believing and valuing women, but I also see it as an absolute mark in terms of gender equality and the history of women's rights towards a positive direction. So it's momentous.
And given how long this battle has gone on, did you ever expect that it would get to this particular point now?
Oh, absolutely not. I was certain that Bill Cosby would die a free man. And I want to say that I'm an Afro-Cuban immigrant, and I love my birth island of Cuba, but I take really seriously my naturalized American citizenship. I don't take it for granted. But this democracy we call the United States is, at the helm of it, we have this white male hetero patriarchy that has sustained itself for generations, for hundreds of years, by oppressing women, by rape, by dominating people of color and LGBT communities. And so this is much greater than Bill Cosby. It talks about that. It talks about this festering wound of patriarchy that is now finally being punctured by brave women on the front line like you, Amy.
Interestingly, Andrew Wyatt, the publicist for Bill Cosby, stood in the pouring rain and said this is the most racist and sexist trial in history.
Oh, that's a joke. This is not about race. It's about rape. And I also heard him intimate that it's a war, that he's suffering a kind of war. And I'm really grateful that he did that.
A sex war that he included Kavanaugh.
And I'm glad he said that because he's accurate about that. This is a war, and I view Bill Cosby as one of the greatest war criminals in history because he waged warfare on the landscapes of the bodies of so many women and girls, including me. And the weapons that he used may not have been tear gas, may not have been grenades and guns, but they were drugs that incapacitated me. They were his mouth, his penis, a pillow that he pushed into my face when I was screaming no. So yeah, he's a war criminal. This is a war.
And could you talk about your experiences in terms of his trying to present himself as a father figure or as a mentor toward you?
Yes, he's duplicitous. I mean, this is what patriarchy uses, right? They use duplicity in order to oppress, and he is a great oppressor. I view him as not only a war criminal, but as a slaver, because he incapacitated me.
What happened? What year was it?
This was in the 1990s, and he mentored me, he praised me, he lifted me up, he boasted about my skills as not only an actor, but as a painter to his friends. And
How old were you?
I was in my
mid-20s.
And once he gained my total trust, he drugged me and he raped me.
You were going to go on the Cosby Show?
Yeah, this happened before. This happened during the mentoring process in preparation of my guest starring role on the Cosby Show. I did end up guest starring on the Cosby Show, and it was the most difficult job I've ever done in my life.
After he raped you?
That's correct.
And he did this at his home?
Well, I don't want to get into the details of it because it's too much to talk about. Suffice to say that I have a plethora of evidence that I was not even able to present because of the statute of limitations. The incident was just a few months out of the statute of limitations, and it barred me. And were it not for the statute of limitations, Bill Cosby would be receiving a sentence that actually reflects the magnitude of the havoc that he's wreaked on the lives of so many women.
Let's go to Gloria Allred.
Yes.
Right after the sentencing, surrounded by so many of the women. This was only a case about one woman, Andrea Constant. But Allred represents a number of Bill Cosby's accusers.
We're glad the Judgment Day has finally come for Mr. Cosby. Mr. Cosby has shown no remorse.
None.
And there has been no justice for many of the accusers who were barred from a court by the arbitrary time limits imposed by the statute of limitations.
Raising this issue of the statute of limitations, Gloria Allred was, that also prevented you. But talk about this. Of the 60 women, of course, many of them African-American women. Who,
over a third. So this is not about race. The United States is comprised of about 5.5% of the population is comprised of black women, and yet over a third of us who have publicly accused Bill Cosby, about 27 of us, are black women. That means that Bill Cosby is actually disproportionately targeting black women. So this is not about race. It is not.
So talk about what this means. He gets 3 to 10 years in prison. He went to jail immediately. The judge stood up when he spoke, didn't he?
Yes, I consider Judge Stephen O'Neill to be a great feminist. I mean, I do. It's phenomenal. I'm grateful that he delivered the maximum 10-year sentence, and he has to serve at least 3 years before he can even be considered parole. And I will be there every step of the way to protest and testify to the parole board for why he should continue to serve the 10-year maximum sentence. But this is
an Andrea Constant's statement in the courtroom. Mm-hmm. Bill Cosby didn't speak, so he never apologized. But Andrea did speak.
Yes, Bill Cosby has absolutely no remorse. And if he continues to show absolutely no remorse, it's not likely that he will be paroled in 3 years. I mean, he's not a stupid man. He's a masterful manipulator. He's an extremely intelligent serial rapist, and he'll probably figure out that in 3 years, if he wants to get out of those bars, then he's going to have to, pretend to care and confess.
Your reaction to Cosby's spouse calling for an investigation of the judge?
That's not the only thing she's done, right? She's also paralleled us to lynch mobs.
You're talking about Camille Cosby.
I'm talking about Camille. She has paralyzed us, the victims of sexual assault, to lynch mobs. She has been verbally attacking females, and many of whom are black women, and just lumping us up with thugs who murder, racist thugs, white supremacists who murder innocent people. And then they paralleled Bill Cosby to Emmett Till, and now they're paralleling Bill Cosby to Jesus Christ. I mean, this is not only blasphemous, it just shows the profundity of their depravity.
We just have 10 seconds,
Yes.
but what this means for Andrea Constant. You, as women, stood together during this trial.
Yeah, Andrea Constant is the Joan of Arc in the war on rape. She has an outstanding family who has just held her up with tremendous strength and unity, and I just think she's going to go down in history.
Judge O'Neill said to Andrea Constant, "You took her beautiful young spirit and crushed it. No one is above the law. No one should be treated differently or disproportionately," he said to Bill Cosby. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. That was Lily Bernard.